Well, let's see. I to follow up with that. That is,
He's speechless, guys.
You hit all the points.
Heyo, what's good, everyone? So today we're talking about the Legion Go S's new Steam edition launching with the Z1 Extreme chip that we know and love. I'm joined by our wonderful hosts and guests, Game Tech Talk and Gaming for Insight. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Hey, fans and subscribers.
So I think that we've got a wonderful little speedcast for everyone tonight because we are talking about the future of the Steam Deck, or maybe the lack thereof. So could you tell me, Clef, if you've gotten a chance to see any reviews? Maybe you could tell us what your big takeaway is?
I've seen a couple in accelerated fashion. The takeaway is pretty much what we've seen from the previous Windows-based, which was people installing Bazzite and getting better performance. And guess what? That's what's happening with SteamOS. But the price hasn't gone down enough, in my opinion, sadly. That's my take.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
What about you, Joe? What you seen so far?
I've had the privilege and opportunity to interface with two content creators that I've been collaborating with on quick chats for the Lenovo Legion Go S, particularly with the SteamOS installed on it. It's interesting in the case that we're in because we now have a recovery image of SteamOS, specifically the 3.7.8, and we can buy whether it be the Windows variant of the Legion Go S, and we can install that recovery image due to the compatibility. And we have more options than we thought we did when we started this year in January, because we originally were thinking if we want SteamOS, we need to go with the Nebula, but you now have an option between the white and the Nebula for that with the Z1E and having up to 32 gigabyte memory support. So if you want to take advantage of that, you definitely can with that open opportunity.
All right. So would you say then that your big takeaway for the audience is that they have a lot of options for the Legion Go S?
I would say there are more options than before, and I think too we're going to see the importance to draw is that a device with SteamOS is becoming more prevalent, and there's more opportunity for it than when we started the year, even outside of the Legion Go S.
Yeah, makes sense. I think those are great takeaways, I think, for our audience. I think if there's anything that is unsurprising, it's that we're seeing a bunch of reviews that say, SteamOS will perform better in something like Cyberpunk versus the Windows version. Anyone who's been following our handhelds like our Legion Go and ROG Ally, that's not a big surprise to you. And so I would say that the performance is kind of expected. Maybe we'll get to some point in the future where that 32 gigabytes of RAM plays a larger role, but right now we're not really seeing that, at least across the board. Joe, you had a great point about all the different options, and this is where I'm going to ask you guys a different kind of question, and this is that with these new Steam editions, what do you think this spells for the future of Steam Deck 2? And are we getting to a point where maybe there's too many options? Is this going to really affect Steam, negatively? Joe, why don't you tell us your thoughts on that first?
I'm going to go back to the previous point that I've made in the podcast that we've done, and I could be completely wrong on this, but I really think unless something is announced, that the idea. And that's really the point, is the Steam Deck 2 is an idea. The Steam Deck 2 is what you want it to be as a gamer. It's the gaming device you want and Steam OS on it. And so we have that Steam OS support for the Lenovo Legion Go OG. We have the ROG Ally, the ROG Ally X, and we now have the Lenovo Legion Go S. And I don't think it's going to take long until we start seeing support for 1X player devices, because they sent out an email for Bazzite support as well. And then also the Lenovo Legion Go 2 or prototype, and even maybe SteamOS will be available on that as an option, but it doesn't need to be, because I think by then we'll have the compatibility for it to go on there. So you can buy it with Windows and then choose, do I want to put a recovery image of SteamOS on there? So the Steam Deck 2 is going to look different based on the preference that each gamer has. The Steam Deck 2 can be the ROG Ally X, it could be the ROG Ally, or another favorite gaming device that you felt was limited by Windows just being bloated, as many say it is, because it does require some tuning and setup.
That's interesting that you say that, because it sounds like you're saying the Steam Deck 2 is essentially what we have now, but it's just, these devices that have SteamOS on it. I don't know. That might be a little bit of a hot
take. I think the Steam Deck 2 is the recovery image, but I'm happy to be corrected on that. Okay. And I don't see why Valve needs to have another Steam Deck with a custom APU. Is there a niche for it? Absolutely. Are there people that just love the form factor of the Steam Deck, including myself, and want to see an actual Steam Deck form factor with limited editions with a custom APU? Yeah, I think there's a niche for that, but would I rather have it with the Z2E? Would I rather have it with the HX370? I'm going to say yes for me. And people may argue with me on that. I just don't see the need for a custom APU to go in a device.
All right, let's hear it, Clef. Let's hear it.
Well, now, to be fair, there are points where I agree with Joe, especially when thinking of what Valve should be trying to do, because they are in the best position to do so, and it only makes sense that they would, which is to preserve their main point of their business, the storefront, right? So it doesn't matter where you are. If you're buying on Steam, Valve is winning, right? So with that in mind, I understand that Steam Deck 2 being an idea and being on multiple devices makes absolute sense across the board. And you want to make sure that people buying their devices that prefer to be on SteamOS will remain in the ecosystem, but have the ability to do that with a device that they prefer to do it so. 100%. However, when we look at the Steam Deck, it is the best way to utilize Steam storefront, so to speak, but it's also a concept that we have yet to see elsewhere. And I'm thinking of the conductive sticks, I'm thinking of the trackpads, I'm thinking of all these elements that, granted, may not be as leveraged as much as Valve could want gamers to do so right now. We don't know. We don't have those stats. At least I don't think we do. But if they have a Steam Deck 2, I think they would continue down that path, which is to expand the way that gamers can game. And it's not just having those face buttons. It's not just having those sticks. There's so much more that happens from ages ago on Steam controllers, be it on the Valve Index with the knuckle controllers, and now with the Steam Deck that has a lot of things that we have yet to see elsewhere. And I would want, and I would hope, and I would believe that Valve will continue to go down that path, because they don't just create a device for their storefront, they expand the way that gamers can game using handhelds. And that's something that I love about the Steam Deck.
That's some really interesting points, Clef. And I'm so glad actually that you mentioned the Valve Index, because you know that as a VR aficionado like myself, people have been waiting a long time for our audience members who are not really into VR for what has been long rumored for well over a year, the Valve Decard, which is supposed to be the successor to the Valve Index. And interestingly, we have these controllers which have leaked, I believe, also last year, which look basically like Steam Deck controllers, just, kind of like cut off. And so there's been lots of rumors, and I have tinfoil hatted for a long time about, basically a Steam Deck for your face, because then you could be playing, basically Steam Big Picture mode in this headset. And then if you need to, jump into VR. Now, it's the Z1 Extreme is already capable of playing some VR games, and the HX370 is very capable of playing VR games. There is a distinct possibility, in my opinion, that a Steam Deck 2 is maybe being held off because they're working on a Valve Decard. That said, we know that Valve doesn't exactly have the best track record when it comes to their sequels. I mean, there's the whole meme of them not being able to count to 3, right? So if we're counting if we're counting Steam Deck OLED as number 2, then maybe there is no Steam Deck 3.
No.
But they've already said, to your point, Clef, they've already said in interviews, I think their lead engineer said that they have very much plans for Steam Deck 2. So yeah, it would be a shame, I think, if we didn't actually get like first party Valve like hardware. So the other thing I wanted to introduce to you guys, though, is this idea that the rumored Xbox handheld, which we're guessing right now is the Xbox ROG Ally 2, how you think that and potentially this rumored PlayStation handheld might throw a cog into all of Valve's plans or whoever's plans. Clef, what's your take on that?
Well, okay, so it's going to be a long one. First of all, for this specific question, I'm going to toss aside PS Handheld super quick, because if I was PlayStation right now, I would completely go back to the drawing board, and they need to do some pretty big thinking. I don't know if you've seen Jez Corden was talking on Twitter/X about a rumor that Xbox handhelds, well, it's coming, and that it would have Steam and Epic Store as part of the full experience, despite being an Xbox device, right? And completely unrelated, I had a conversation, a very heated debate that I love to have about Xbox handhelds with someone on stream about how the rumored device would have 64 gigabytes of RAM. And I was like, no, that makes no sense. Why would you have a handheld, considering the strength of the chips, a handheld that is designed for gaming? We're not talking about productivity here. We're talking gaming. 64 gigabyte is overkill. You're not going to be running 4K native on your handheld. However, if that device was docked into an eGPU, that changes things. A lot, in fact. And I think the rumors and Valve being part of all that ecosystem gives us an Xbox handheld that would be somewhat of a hybrid Xbox Series S and X at the same time. And it's not like if it's the first time that we've heard Microsoft having swappable GPUs in their plans, but it never made it to the final cut. How about if now that would be the case, where you can really buy an Xbox handheld, have something that you can dock much like you can with the Switch, but this time around, you have an eGPU to completely unleash the power of your handheld. And it doesn't matter where you are. You're on Epic, you're on Valve, you're on Xbox, Windows Game Store, Game Pass, name it. You will have top performance when you want to dock, but you'll still be able to do everything as you undock and keep it in handheld format. I think that's where we're going with Xbox. And if that is the case, PlayStation, I love you, PlayStation, but you need to have a plan.
I know Joe has some strong thoughts about that, because he has shared about this Xbox handheld before. Joe?
That's really exciting if that is the case, because we could see eGPU support outside of Windows, possibly, if it is to be entailed on a gaming handheld that is for Xbox console games specifically, not the PC Game Pass that we're used to, but an actual patched Xbox game that can run in a Linux environment, for example, maybe use Proton drivers for the software translation layer, and then actually have that eGPU support for docked play versus undocked play. That's a really exciting development. I've talked about it on the podcast too, being able to take games like Fallout 76, Rage 2, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and that I've played on my Xbox consoles, and be able to take them, carry with my progress on an actual gaming handheld. And I believe in the plausibility of integration with Epic and Steam. We've heard Microsoft rumor it, talk about it as well as an idea. I really encourage that, and would like to see it, because it is versatile and it gives gamers opportunity to take advantage of that versatility. And so the Steam Deck really captivated me in the concept and idea of gaming on Linux. And so I want to see that continue. And if this Xbox handheld, I know that there's been a version at least where it's definitely Windows 11. I'm not convinced that this is going to be Windows 11 to take are to be an Xbox handheld, but I could be proven wrong here.
Is that your way, Joe, of telling us that you want this device to be on Qualcomm? You want it to be an ARM Windows? Is that what you're trying to say? Last I checked, those don't have eGPU support, but I will be happy to be proven wrong.
You're right. They don't.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask the both of you, Clef, you were just talking about tossing the PS Portal in the trash. I'm sorry, I mean like just the next PlayStation handheld in the trash. But
yeah.
So underneath the surface, though, some viewers might not be familiar with the architecture. Given that an Xbox handheld is likely to have an AMD APU inside, and so is a PlayStation APU. I mean, what do you guys think is going to be the differentiator between them? From my understanding, right now on your Xbox Series X or S, you can have like cross save or cross play on PC depending on what the title is, right? So is like PlayStation going to have to try and do something like that? Or are they going to have to bring more to the table? Or are they just like throwing in the towel now?
I think that's a guarantee at this point. The gap, like I used to be many years ago, completely doubtful of the capacity of a handheld, but the truth is that line has been blurred for so long now. So I don't think something like cloud saving would be a differentiator, and having the ability to play the same games. Devices have proven for half a decade already that handhelds can do that these days. Now, what I would expect to see as a difference for sure is just the ability to tap into a massive library to so many different storefronts. And that's obviously what Microsoft is going for. It is to be able to say, they're kind of putting a spin on their marketing campaign. Like everything is an Xbox. I feel like they're kind of flipping it on its head, and now they're making it so that everything is an Xbox. And so that no matter how you want to play, on what storefront you want to play, you'll be doing it on an Xbox going forward, because we'll put them all under the same roof. Now, the one thing where I feel like there's got to be lawyers looking into that already is if it happens, technically, you could potentially have Sony games on an Xbox device without them, well, have they agreed to that? I guess it depends on the deal that they have with Valve and Epic Store. Mm-hmm. But there are Sony games on, as we know, Steam and Epic Store. And I know they're working on their own launchers as well. But what will happen to these pre-existing games that are on Valve suddenly on an Xbox handheld if everything goes according to plan? I mean, that's wild to think about. So I feel like that's going to be the big differentiator. It's going to be the storefronts, and that's why I don't think PlayStation has moved in that direction. And I'll be honest, as someone that was angry with Microsoft for many years because I feel like they damaged the gaming landscape as I once loved it, I have not been as excited for years as I am now for Microsoft. I think they're doing big things, and that it's going to be very positive for gamers if truly the vision is executed as the rumors say.
Yeah, that's a fascinating picture that you're painting for sure. Joe, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's see. I follow up with that. That is, you hit all the points. You really did. I'm trying to think what I can say to if there's anything you really missed. It's not coming to me right now. I just want to be able to take.
Joe just wants to be able to put his
Assassin's Creed Odyssey on the go. That's it.
Oh, okay. I
continued on my Xbox console.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say you wanted the all of those Xbox games on your Retroid devices. That's what I thought you were gonna say.
Well, I mean, and to the point, we're seeing a great movement here with virtualization. We can take titles that are made to play on different platforms, virtualize them, and use Wine plugins and use Proton drivers to be able to provide that software layer for translation. So a game can run in a different environment. I think the way to put it is we're seeing the line less it's not as sharp as it used to be when it comes to software emulation, virtualization, and taking something and running it on a different platform in a different environment than it's made to. And that makes me excited as a gamer to be one in this time where we're doing software emulation on the Steam Deck. We're doing Windows emulation on Android handhelds. We're putting Linux distributions on what originally came as Android handhelds so that we can do emulation for systems that we played growing up. All of that is very exciting. So I think if I can add anything, maybe just some additional sprinkles to what Game Tech Talk talked about, I would say that is my point I'd like to make.
So exciting.
No, that's great. That's definitely a big spin on everything being an Xbox. Do you guys think by some chance the Razer toaster is going to qualify as an Xbox too? One can only hope.
The Microsoft fridge,
Yep.
The KFC console, all of them.
Yep.
Last time I checked, I've seen instances of old ports of Doom running on a Samsung fridge. So hey, maybe the device you're missing in your collection is the Samsung fridge to run Doom. And I don't know.
Samsung Xbox fridge.
A lot of wives are about to get a conversation right after watching this video. Babe,
honey, I need a Samsung fridge and I need it now.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I think you've had some great input and really painted a interesting and very fascinating and fresh landscape for gamers, definitely. But before we wrap things up, I would like to have Clef introduce a different segment for us.
Yes, absolutely. So we're trying something different. We want to respond to some of the comments and questions that you guys have. And so what we did is we took one from our previous video that just so happens to fall perfectly in line with the subject that we're talking about today. So I'm going to read the question and then we'll see if we have inputs or answers to give to that. And the comment comes from Stevie Big Guns Gaming 8118 and says Legion Go for $599 with SteamOS is the best for the money. The extra RAM on the Windows version isn't doing much playing these games on low to medium settings at lower resolution. The SSD is an easy upgrade. The Z2 Go on SteamOS is showing only 10% lower performance than the Z1E from the recent videos I'm seeing. I wouldn't recommend the OG Ally to anyone. I had 4 of them, nothing but issues. Ally X is phenomenal, and my daily driver, I really just want the 8-inch display most of all. So, clearly, Stevie Big Guns would not want a Steam Deck 2. At least I'm not getting that impression. You guys have anything to say about Stevie Big Guns' comment?
I think you summarized that beautifully. But I don't think I have anything to add to that. I don't know.
Steam Deck 2 does he not want? Does he not want the physical Steam Deck 2 as far as the Steam Deck that we have OG, or does he already have the figurative Steam Deck 2 SteamOS on his Ally X, and then he's just not going to purchase a Steam Deck 2 if Valve's engineers come around to saying, hey, here's our Steam Deck 2. It looks like the Steam Deck, but it's the Steam Deck 2.
Possibly. Joe, I'm gonna give it to you.
You made that brilliant point earlier. I had to try. I got to keep up with this Game Tech Talk. You keep me on my toes, bro. You keep me on my toes. I can't slack off in this community.
I mean, he said. I mean, if there's anything, I think that he definitely wants from this Steam Deck 2. It sounds like an 8-inch display. So I mean, he's got two different claws to choose from. I guess one for each claw.
Oh, with Claw actually now going AMD, who knows? Maybe they haven't announced the SteamOS, right? They just have announced AMD versions, right?
Right.
At Computex, those colorful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cliff
green, the red.
The MSI product manager Clifford Chun actually said that there's no plans for SteamOS currently.
Can I speak? MSI, if you watch this video, please don't repeat the mistake. Like, keep an open mind, bring SteamOS along, let gamers choose. My take. I'm sorry. My take. All right.
It's okay. That comment is Lucky approved.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your hot takes as well as your very cool ones. Once again, thanks everyone for watching. Please make sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Do all that stuff, as well as tell us what you like and don't like about the videos. All right. See you guys in the next one.
I should go.